Hey everyone, it's Shahir from Vibe Academy. So, as you might know, being that it is early January of 2024, the ACT exam, the next one is just a few weeks away, I think like February 10th or something. So, if you're taking that test, you have about 5 weeks left to learn all of the content of the test and get prepared to actually score a good score so you can get into a good college and make your parents happy. And also, make yourself happy, but that's not the most important thing, right? What the point of this video is I want to give you guys a bunch of random strategies that you can implement to make the most of the remaining time that you have. Why am I doing this? Because we've had lots of students come through our programs and lots of students comment on our YouTube videos and lots of students sign up for tutoring with us that end up in this situation where there's like 5, 6, 7 weeks left and they want to do everything and they want to try to improve as fast as possible. And we're like, I mean, why did you wait until now to start studying? But at the end of the day, that's not the important question at this point. The important question is what can you do and how can you actually get results? And we've had students that have come through our programs and watched our videos and done tutoring with us that have had great results within 2-3 weeks. I'm talking 6 points in a couple weeks. I'm talking 8-9 points within a month. I'm not guaranteeing you're going to have the same results, but it has happened before. So what I'm going to do is basically throw a bunch of stuff at you and see what you might think is a good strategy, allow you to choose which ones you think are going to help you, and see what sticks on the wall, right? At this point, given how much time you have no choice but to try a bunch of things and see which things end up panning out well. So I'll go through a list. I might end up going through like 8 to 10 of them. I'm really winging this, kind of like how you might be winging your ACT studying, but I guess we're all in this together, right? So it's fine. First thing. So the very first thing is don't stress. Like I said, it's a stressful situation to be in, but that doesn't mean that you need to be stressed. What it does mean is you need to just sit down, think. For whatever reason, whether it's in my control or because of someone else's mistakes or whatever it is, I'm in this situation where I don't have much time to study and I need to study in order to improve as fast as possible. So you have no choice but to just try your best, and trying your best means not panicking and not stressing out. Take it one test at a time. Don't expect results that are going to be out of this world right away. You might not have any success until your very last practice exam that you take. So if you don't score well today, be hopeful for tomorrow or the next week or the next month, whatever it is. Okay? Because you haven't fully seen your potential until the time that you have between now and your test date is actually done. So don't stress, okay? Don't stress today, don't stress tomorrow. You can stress the very last night. I'll give you permission to stress then, okay? That's the first thing. Now, what do you actually do beyond just not stressing? When it comes to actually studying, the second tip is you want to do a lot of practice. If you haven't started taking practice exams already, take 2 to 3 practice exams per week. Ideally, 2 is a good number. If you haven't studied before, you might find it harder to do 2. Maybe you'll end up doing 1.5. At the very least, what that boils down to is on average doing 1 practice section per day. You don't have to do 1 every single day. You can do like 2 a day for 3-4 days and then not do anything for the next 3-4 days, okay? Find what balance and what schedule works for you, but on average per week, you want to take 2 to 3 practice exams per week. Do that for a month. You'll end up with 6, 7, 8 practice exams over the course of a month. That'll give you enough exposure to content that you're actually familiar enough with the test and the skills and how the timing works and whatnot, okay? So just keep in mind that's your scope of work. That's your quantity of work that you need to hit. Remember that. All right, what else do I have here? Spend the first week or so practicing everything. So you have a month left, you have 4 or 5 weeks. What you want to do is spend the first week to week and a half doing equal amounts of practice for each section. And then what that's going to show you is, if you don't already know, it's going to show you which sections are your weakest, okay? So depending on which ones are your weakest, those are the ones you're going to want to spend more time on. Those are the ones that are going to hold your score back the most. So if you're scoring like 35 English, 34 math, 33 reading, and then 21 science, it's not really going to help you that much to practice the first 3 sections because they're not going to get you as much yield. There's not as much potential for improvement, okay? So always remember, you practice your weakest section. So after the first week and a half or so, focus more on, instead of practicing everything else, everything evenly, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, maybe do like, I'm going to spend 50% of my time or 75% of my time on these 2 sections, and then the rest of the time is going to be for the other 2 sections. Something like that. That'll help you, again, improve what you need to improve. Then that's really 2 tips in one. The first tip is, first for 1.5 weeks is everything, practice everything, and then the second bit was focus on your weaker ones in your latter half. I guess what I'm going to do at this point is kind of get into how you actually improve and cram for each section, because it's a little bit different. So this is going to be 4 different tips, one for English, math, reading, science each, and how you're going to do it, because the English test is different from the reading, it's different from the science, it is different from the math. So how do you improve on English within a month or so? With English and also with math, these two are kind of similar in that they are very skill heavy. So if you don't already know the skills, you're going to need to learn them. And it's a lot of skills. It's about 25 skills for English. It's about 50 or more for math. If you don't already know them, you need to take a bunch of practice exams, look at which problems you're getting wrong, identify why you got them wrong, what the correct answer is, why it's correct, and see if you just try to extract as much information as you possibly can from that problem and from its correct answer. If you do this over the course of 6, 7, 8 practice exams, and you do it for all your English practice tests, and you do it for all your math practice tests, and you not only do it once, but you come back to each practice exam after you take another test, you will internalize a lot of that knowledge, and you'll almost be teaching yourself the information. It's not as effective as if you had a tutor or if you had a teacher in class that actually did a good job of teaching it to you, which I know some teachers don't do a good job, and I'm very sorry if you've gone through the trauma of having bad teachers. We all have. But the point is, you are in a position where you don't know the skills for whatever reason, whether it's your fault or someone else's, and you need to learn them. So take the practice exams, review your mistakes after each one, ask yourself those questions like I asked you maybe 45 seconds ago, and redo that exercise with even past practice exams that you've already done. So if you're on your 4th practice exam and you just finished it, go back and review your first 3 to make sure you don't forget those mistakes and forget that information that you learned from those mistakes you made 3 practice exams ago or 2 practice exams ago. That'll help you, okay? Math, really the same thing as English. It's just more skills. So make sure this is probably an even more important strategy for math than it is for English. So that's my math strategy. Is you should be. I told you not to be stressed, but you should be a little more stressed for math than for English if your score is equivalent for both. Usually people are much better at English or math or one or the other. Usually not struggling too much with both. But if that's the case for you, then you need to, put a lot of time into both. All right, moving on to reading. So how do you improve reading and also science within a few weeks? So reading and science are not very skill heavy. They're very different from English and math. Reading and science, what you need to do is you need to get very good at reading stuff very quickly and remembering everything, and also answering the questions about that information very quickly. And what that really boils down to is 2 things. First, you have to have a good skimming method. So you have to be able to read quick and retain the information. And the second bit is you need to be able to understand the question patterns and how they are repetitive. The science questions are literally the exact same every single time on every science test. So the way you're going to get better at the questions is just by exposure, by understanding the questions, understanding kind of how they work, and noticing the patterns. After 8 practice exams, you should be able to notice those patterns. And you'll get better and better at them the more practice exams you take. So if you have a little more than just 4 or 5 weeks, if you're able to even do 2.5 to 3 practice exams per week and focus a lot more on science, if it's one of your weaker sections, then you'll be able to understand these patterns a little better than someone who's not doing as much practice, okay? So that's how you address the question issue if you find the questions to be very difficult. As far as skimming and how to improve your skimming abilities on reading and science, for reading, we have other videos that I'm not going to get into here. The subject matter for which is very in-depth. We go in-depth on like 5 different ways to skim on reading passages, and three main things to look for on reading passages, 3 main things to look for on science passages to make sure you're actually internalizing the important information. So think of it this way. Reading and science passages are a lot like cotton candy, where it looks really big and it looks like there's a lot of stuff there, but it's actually just a lot of air. It's kind of like a cloud, right? It doesn't have much substance. It tastes kind of good, but maybe not so good either. And in that sense, reading science, they're just a lot of fluff. The passages are a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of substance, but there are a few very key pieces of information that you really need to focus in on. And I'll just give them to you right now. For reading, there's 3 things, like I said: relationships, emotions, and events. Anytime you notice a relationship between people, objects, places, anytime you notice an emotion, like someone's expressing feelings, if the author is expressing feelings, and anytime you notice an event, that's the 3rd thing. Any mention of sequence of events, of an important event in a person's life, or a lapse in time from one year to another, those are events that you need to take note of. The passage and then the questions will typically ask you about that. For science, the 3 things are variables, relationships, differences. So when you read any science passage, there are always going to be variables. There are, different things that are being measured, like inputs, outputs, like temperature, time, pressure, frequency, mass, volume, speed, etc., etc. There's always a list of things, right? So just circle and underline what those variables are. Knowing what they are is going to help you answer questions better, and it'll just give you a good baseline understanding of what the heck is the passage actually talking about. It's not just a bunch of scientific information, but rather it's a bunch of variables. And how are those variables related? Well, that's the second thing. Once you've identified the variables, you need to identify the relationships. What are the relationships between those variables? What are the trends? So if you have like a graph and it's showing you like, okay, as the x value does this, the y value is also increasing, or it's decreasing, or there's like a parabola relationship or like a sine relationship, whatever it is, you need to notice that for every table and every graph. Otherwise, you're not going to know the key relationships. And usually there's only a few, but you need to identify all of them just by looking at the tables and graphs, okay? And identifying, okay, I see the numbers are increasing, or I see the data points are decreasing. That's a relationship. And the last one is differences. So if you're given a science passage where there's multiple experiments or multiple viewpoints in the same passage, then the differences between those multiple experiments or viewpoints will be asked about. So you might remember, if you've taken a science practice exam before, there is usually a passage about, hey, here's a topic, here's 4 different scientists and 4 different opinions for each. So here, answer some questions about it. Read through it, answer some questions. Everyone loves answering questions about 4 different scientists and their different opinions, right? So it's always a piece of cake, but it's not, because it's a lot of text. But if you focus on identifying just the differences between them, and if you get better and better at noticing the types of patterns and how those differences are usually explained in those types of passages, you'll be able to be successful on these types of passages on science, okay? Same thing for multiple experiments within the same passage. Just looking through my list that I definitely don't have sitting next to me, I don't think there's a lot more that I want to add. The last thing I'll say is, where you're at right now, the time for experimentation is kind of running out. If you had, maybe instead of 1 month, maybe if you had 2 months, 3 months, you'd have a little more time to like experiment with strategies and try different things. But what I'd say right now is you need to just pick and stick. You need to pick a method, stick with it. It's going to help you just progress with what you end up sticking with. You'll get the most time to just practice it, rather than if you try one method for a week and you switch again after that and try something else for a week, and try something else for the week after that, and try something else the week after that. I'm talking about like different timing strategies, different skimming strategies. At this point, just pick and stick. Stick to the basics, especially on reading and science. Try to get through the passage within 9 minutes, like the passage and its questions, and then move on. Be strict with timing. Again, pick and stick. So what I'll do is I'll link some videos down below that go a little more in depth on what I'm talking about when it comes to pick and stick. There's timing methods, there's skimming methods, there are, those are the 2 main ones, okay? So there'll be videos that will demonstrate that. I'll link those down below if you need a little more information for reading and science. Hopefully the math and science bit was a little more direct and clear, so I don't think you guys should need more information there. It's just learn the skills. We have videos like the 52 ACT Math Skills video series and the 25 ACT English Skills video series on our channel. So if you want to learn the skills or at least know what they look like, you can watch the videos on our channel and they will help you. If you are, and this is basically the end of the video, if you're someone that needs a little more help, or needs a little more personalized advice than just this video, and you're in the position that I talked about where you're kind of 5-6 weeks out and you don't really know what to do, feel free to schedule a free tutoring session on our website. We do offer free tutoring for anyone that signs up. You can schedule a 15-minute session and we'll help you out. We have tutors that are pretty smart, I'd say. They're definitely smarter than me, and they'll be able to help you out with any of the questions you have. If you want to go through problems, if you want to ask questions about how to improve, if you just want to kind of cry to them about how much you're struggling with the ACT or the SAT, we'll be more than happy to assist and listen to you and help you out wherever we can. Or just be there and cry with you. So I think that's all that I had. Hopefully that gives you the information you need to cram for the ACT exam in 5-ish weeks. I think it's exactly 5 weeks. Yeah, because the test is on this. Today's a Friday. So yeah, best of luck guys on your test. I hope this was helpful, and I'm going to talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.